Okay, we're going to be discussing this letter from the Chancellor's office, March 16 to 2015. And there's several problems. This is where the Chancellor is representing that there's been an investigation. This would have been an investigation that was conducted by an Assistant Attorney General, State Attorney General, for 7 months. And so that investigation has never been released. And it's very clear that the facts of that investigation have been changed or simply concealed. So let's take a look at this investigation. I mean, we really get to see the inside of CSU, kind of how they're going to deal with an accusation that the M.A. Tessel Korea thing was actually a diploma mill, along with another scheme in China that surfaced in 2016. So a couple of things, the way they're going to handle this is they really want to belittle you. Okay, they're going to make you sound stupid. They're going to include information that you've never said. They're going to exclude information, pertinent information, that you've reported many, many times. And this is kind of a psyop. This is a complete mental fatigue kind of situation where they're resistant. And this goes all the way back to the original grievances being filed with Dr. Haynes and Dr. Bodeman. So, reading it in this light, you understand that you're really up against quite a bit here, that they're really going to use their powers, that these executive orders and stuff really don't have any merit, particularly if they're involved in some kind of wrongdoing. So this is a complaint, and actually, again, it really wasn't investigated, so it's actually very lean. You can imagine a 7-month investigation by the State Attorney General would produce some comprehensive information. For example, we're going to read that they actually did conduct the investigations on the 2 formal grievances, but we know they didn't. They never complied with the timelines. They both the investigators, Dr. Haynes and Dr. Bodeman, stated they weren't going to investigate, and they didn't. But this is going to say that they did, but they don't produce them. They've never produced those findings. They never interviewed me. They didn't interview other people. We don't know what questions they asked, of how scripted the whole process was. And so what they're saying here on this line is they're misrepresenting that that I'm not appealing the investigative findings. Of course I am. I mean, this whole investigation has been defrauded. It's just not true, and there's several ways to prove this. One would be with the transcripts of the interim of the suspension hearing that they held. They retained those tapes for over 7 months. They were supposed to give them in 10 business days, 10 business days, and they changed them. They edited the transcripts. So all you have to do is listen to the hearings, which they won't release. We've asked for those many times. They forbade us from filming the hearing, so they didn't want any record, although we did actually do some filming of the hearing, and I did have a witness in the hearing the entire time who was taking notes that I did not identify in the hearing because, again, they're really going to control this. They're going to control your ability to capture this hearing, which is very important, that you capture an authentic record of what went on during your hearing, because if you don't, they're going to switch it up. So this is completely wrong that I'm not talking about the findings. And again, I'm not going to read this, but what it really goes on is this human resources, Cesar Portillo, looked like he was interested in doing the investigation. The problem was, at this point, they had not investigated the formal grievances. I then had to file an Executive 1097, and Portillo was an interim. And he was subordinate to the people that he was investigating, including, Dr. Haynes, the President Morales, Sandra Vasquez. And so the thing is, they intervene in the investigation. We'll see Dr. Haynes has got his fingers with the investigator under an investigation against him for failure to investigate the formal grievances that were dealing with this academic fraud that was filed through Provost Bodman, and this non-academic fraud that was filed with Dr. Haynes. So here's the people that are involved in this. These were the main players. Of course, Thomas Morales, they don't interview him because he claims he didn't have direct contact with me. We're going to read about that. But I guess dozens of emails and multiple calls to his office. I had nice calls to his staff, talked to them frequently. And this is when they finally banned me in April. Sandra Vasquez, we'll be talking about her. Got to watch out for her. She's pretty tough. And the thing is that all these acts were to conceal the fact that they weren't investigating these formal grievances, and that this M.A. Tessel scheme with Korea was in fact what we believe it to be, a diploma mill. They completely confirmed it. So these are the major players that were involved. The hearing officer less so, but the thing is, during the hearing, I was forbade from mentioning anything to do with the formal grievances. If I discussed it, I was going to be thrown out of the meeting. There's pretty intense dialogue of me arguing that point, that of course I'm going to be talking about this. And Allison Satterlin, bless her heart, man, nope, we're not talking about that in this hearing. Because see, what they did is they created this false narrative that I had threatened them. This is when they intervened with the investigator, and I had a confidential call with the investigator that the investigator revealed to Sandra Vasquez and Brian Haynes, who were under investigation by this guy. And he's never cited for any wrongdoing. I mean, they really couldn't, because he could file a complaint through the union or whatever that this is a bunch of baloney. I mean, at this point, when we've got these many people involved, everyone's pretty much covered. That's just the way it works. I mean, it doesn't matter how outrageous your conduct was, particularly when we look at Sandra Vasquez. I mean, we just have to look at her, in March of 2015, she went on to UC Santa Barbara. We just have to look at her conduct there. I mean, the thing is, there's student blogs talking about what she's doing, and, she's in charge of student affairs. She's the dean of student affairs or something. And she is fabricating evidence, which is what she did with me to get me suspended after Dr. Haynes intervened with the investigation. Now that's been completely concealed because they don't want to. Sandra Vasquez, I mean, had she been held accountable for what she had done at Cal State San Bernardino, she wouldn't have been at UC Santa Barbara ruining people's lives. I mean, she was involved with this young man who was suspended, for apparently some violence against his girlfriend. Never happened. And she was bearing a lot of complaints and doing kind of a psyop that these people are involved in. And so they've got this planned program waiting for you to take advantage of. Now, so yeah, this is the complaint where Vasquez bans me in April from calling anyone. And of course, all my calls were very nice. I was very professional. And they just didn't want me to do it anymore. I mean, because I kept on asking about the formal grievances. When are they going to investigate? So here they talk about that I was given a cease order to call everybody on the campus, but they don't say why. What happened? Like, why did you do this? What did I do to warrant this? Well, nothing that was even remotely involved in misconduct. I mean, it was kind of fun, actually, because you knew they weren't going to do anything. And like I said, I called President Morales' office numerous times. And of course, because I didn't have direct contact with them, he refused to meet with us. There were a group of us on campus that summer that wanted to meet with him to discuss our concerns about the amount of plagiarism and academic dishonesty that was taking place. Okay, so now they've talked about the two formal grievances. Again, these were never investigated. Portillo tried, and at some point he asked me, what can we do to settle this? And unfortunately I said, just do the investigations, right? Just do the formal grievance investigations, which has never been done. Now, Allison Satterlin here, she just arrived from Dartmouth, and the thing is that we have her acting really poorly. She was the facilitator of these hoax suspension hearing and expulsion hearings that they did. It was unbelievable how all their testimony against me was third party. So I've got Dean Carmenova of CEL, and Sandra Vasquez stating I was involved with horrible behavior, but they couldn't produce any witnesses that actually were going to substantiate that. The police showed up, said that I was fine. There was a recording of my contact. I was served with the suspension papers on campus. I just arrived for the summer session, and they suspended me within 3 days. So Saddleman was a major, she just stepped into it, and she earned her brownie points, I guess. She's a member of the team now, because what she did in that hearing, the threats and the suppression of evidence, and then withholding those transcripts for 7 months, and then redacting audibly, or redacting the written transcripts to portray a whole different narrative. See, the problem is Sandra Vasquez, she's off her meds or something. I don't know what's going on with her that day, but she's testifying in the hearing. And she has to excuse herself from testimony because she has an emergency call coming. So she takes the emergency call during the hearing, and it's the police, it's the Cal State Police, and they're telling her that I am outside her office. Oh yeah, on the Cal State campus, when I was 400 miles away, on a phone call, suspension hearing. So they ended the hearing for like 5 minutes, and of course I wanted to talk about this. What do you mean I'm outside of Vasquez's office? By the way, Vasquez testifies that her office was on lockdown, that they were so fearful of me that they actually had a police presence and they could not function. They could not work, which is really bizarre, right? Because, it was just such baloney. It was just so outrageous. It was so offensive. I'd never been on that campus, and there were never any threats. They never proved these threats. In fact, Portillo does testify correctly that nobody was threatened at any time. They were threatened because, conducting these formal grievance investigations were going to show that they're running this diploma mill. But they weren't going to allow that. So here's the bad actors. Of course, we have Bodman, who got the academic formal grievance, and I spoke with him briefly on the phone for 2 minutes, and he basically said that I do not believe these allegations, so therefore I will not investigate this, which is outrageous. This guy's the provost of a publicly held university, and he's not going to conduct an investigation on a diploma mill because he just doesn't believe it's happening. And of course we have Brian Haynes. We're going to have a lot to talk about him. He was, he's running off to University of California at Riverside now for really what is a promotion, probably just to pad his pension. And the thing is, we have the Chancellor Wilcox claiming all the good things that he's done, and in reality, he actually created this. He is the one that decided not to investigate the formal grievances, and that set off a series of dominoes falling, which saw him intervening into the 1097 executive order investigation in August, and then days later me being suspended. Him having communication about a confidential discussion that I had just had with the investigator. The investigator sharing it with Haynes. And Haynes and Vasquez are cooking it in their pot into something completely different, which is what Vasquez does in Santa Barbara when she destroys this guy's life. And there's a court order about that. So Santa Vasquez, so we've got the college, we got Taintia Carmenova, and she's, of course, aware that this is a diploma mill. This is a college that exists outside the funding of the state of California, so we can see what's happening here. Cesar Portillo has been promoted. He was an interim at the time that he was involved in his communications with the people he was investigating inappropriately, and he allowed them to create this false narrative where they then suspended me for 9 months and made up all this baloney. So as far as the witnesses, this lady was great. She was the ombuds at Cal State San Bernardino, who was shortly dismissed after helping us. She told us about the formal grievance procedure, and she told us about the executive orders, and showed us